So the last thing we want to talk about is give a brief overview of wireframing, copywriting, and basic design. Um, the concept of wireframing is really making mock-ups on the computer of what your eventual product will look like. Importantly, if you look at the qualification over here, we presume that every product in the class is going to have a web component, and that the product itself is going to be initially marketed through your crowdfunding website, but will ultimately have its own dedicated website. And indeed, that crowdfunding website will ultimately, potentially morph into the product website over time. But the idea here is, there's many different kinds of wireframing tools. I like these four. They all have, relative strengths and weaknesses. Lucidchart is easiest to collaborate on. OmniGraffle has good offline support. Jetstrap exports to Bootstrap. PopApp is very easy to use in terms of pen and paper. So pick one of those that works for you. In terms of copywriting, read through these things. I do think that it's worth, trying to find maybe one message that is really short that you optimize very heavily, and repeat that above the fold. And in general, if it's not a homepage message, it's not a message. So you want to really try to get a very compact description of what the value of your product is. And here's a few more details on that. You can kind of take a look at Amazon's press releases, Oracle's marketing, and the concept of a feature matrix, and use that to assist with your copywriting. Finally, in terms of design, this is something that's relatively difficult to teach. I can only give some pointers, really. It's a whole class or set of classes in its own right. So, at the very highest level, one of the very first things to know about is the distinction between vector and raster graphics. That's something that surprisingly a lot of people don't know, and they're sort of mystified as to why their PowerPoint presentations pixelate. In general, if you can get a vector copy of some asset, you should. In terms of principles for design, the non-designer's design book is actually probably your single best reference. Those principles are illustrated here. I actually like the alignment example and maybe the repetition example a little better than the others. I'm not so sure that it's actually being beautified by the end of the last one, but at least with the alignment one, it's definitely pretty good. So you can click these links and take a look at them. What I'd suggest here is understand these four concepts, try to internalize them, do your design without thinking too much, and then try and reapply them at the end. In terms of fonts and icons, a useful trick is to actually do a font-heavy design. That is to say, relatively minimal graphics, and try and use your font to perk up the site. And the reason for that is then you can do something that looks pretty decent, and without drawing ability necessarily. You can use icons as well, and icons are good because, especially if they're part of a fonts library like Font Awesome, they're actually vector graphics. And if you limit yourself to just fonts, you actually can get pretty far in terms of illustrating your website. And then you can get a real designer to help you down the line once you've got some revenue or traction. And this won't get you to a 10 on design, it'll get you to like a 7, just something that looks reasonable. Stock photos, video, animations. Take a look at the tips over here. The main thing that you want to do is, I would actually suggest going relatively light on the stock photos, especially of stock photos where people are, looking directly at the camera. That's really what makes a stock photo kind of look, generic or cheap. You can crop stock photos, change the coloring and so on, and then people won't even know they're stock photos, especially if they're looking away from the camera. And finally, you don't need to spend that much money on design. Usually, once you're passable at a 7 or an 8 level, you'll be fine. And if you use Bootstrap, you'll actually get pretty good, right off the bat. Theme Forest, 99 Designs, Dribble, for increasing amounts of money, Theme Forest, you can get some templates. 99 Designs, you can hire some freelancers, and then Dribble, you can get some full-time designers. For increasing amounts of money, you can take that stock Bootstrap theme and then do something better with it. So that kind of summarizes wireframe, copywriting, and design. Again, each of these are things in their own right, but really click on the tools, mess around with them, and that should get you started.